Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now present the pre-recorded statement of the President of the Republic of El Salvador, His Excellency Nayib Bukele, who will address the Assembly during the general debate of the 76th session. Many thanks indeed.
La humanidad ha pasado.
Humankind has weathered very difficult times, and it has been in these times where it had the opportunity to truly contemplate the path it must take, tipping points in which we've had to decide as humankind the path that we will take. At times, crises are warnings to change our course, to think about whether what we're doing is the reality, in reality, what we really want to do, to think about the future that we want to have. That was the case with the First World War. After the First World War, among other things, we saw the predecessor organization of the United Nations created. That was the League of Nations, and humankind embarked upon a period of intense social, cultural, economic, and artistic dynamism. The Roaring Twenties was a decade in which humankind thought about the future it wanted to see and worked to achieve it. This decade was born of a crisis, and fate saw that it was stymied by another. That was the Great Depression, a decade of economic crisis, of pessimism, a warning that humankind did not heed. It led to a bigger crisis, and that of the Second World War. This time the blow dealt was sufficient to learn and decide the path that humankind should follow. It was then that we saw the formation of the United Nations organization, with the goal of maintaining international peace, achieving security across the world, and encouraging economic and social development. We had a new drive generated, a new momentum, a time when there was optimism for the future. People worked together to build this vision, build the picture of the world they wished to see, and everyone worked to achieve this vision. I managed to see the end of this period, and I remember that we were thinking about the future, and we were enthusiastic. We were enjoying our moment and helping to build the world we wished to see. While we experience such moments of optimism, we need to cultivate them, to maintain them, and to make the progress that we can. 2 years ago, I was in the General Assembly as the recently elected president of a small country in Central America, El Salvador. The same General Assembly that many years ago aroused such optimism was nearing obsolescence. I proved this with a selfie. I took a selfie to demonstrate that the world had changed, that it continues to change, and that we have a duty to understand it, to use our potential to look after it and resolve the problems that we can resolve. And I took a selfie to show how El Salvador was beginning to understand this world. I said it again 1 year ago in the middle of a pandemic, that like in any major crisis, what we were experiencing was a new warning to contemplate our path. And I spoke about how El Salvador, in spite of everything, was thinking about the future with optimism. Once again, I'm here, and to say that we didn't heed this warning, and we're heading towards another crisis, an even greater crisis, as was the Second World War after the Great Depression. We're risking much more than we thought it possible to lose. We're in a world which is increasingly frenzied, more fragmented, more anxious, more pessimistic, and more individualistic. A world in which almost nobody knows where we're going or even where we want to go. We're resolving problems in the short term, jumping from one crisis to another, until we'll reach one that we won't be able to resolve. The society and the world is suffering, and it seems that we're increasingly far away from tackling the causes of this suffering. We're in a world in which we're producing more than we need, and there are still people that die of hunger from a lack of medicines and from a lack of drinking water. We're in a world where if someone wants to do something differently, he's attacked rather than being guided and being helped to find his path, a path that the rest of humankind might follow. We're in a world which is in the midst of a pandemic where we've seen the best and the worst of humankind, and whose collective response has only multiplied global anxiety. We've seen a pandemic which has deepened the crises that were already there. We're drawing ever closer to a civilizational collapse that we'd been on the brink of for decades. We're in a world plagued by all types of crisis, but primarily by a crisis of identity. We're in a world which is incredibly anxious because of the path that we're taking. Civilization is fragile, the progress of humankind is too, and we're failing to make this progress. One more crisis and we could lose much more quickly than we ever thought possible. Let us learn from previous civilizations, from their achievements and mistakes. We have a responsibility to history, to all of those that came before us, to continue with the progress of humankind and to make as much progress as we can, to build on what they built, to build on the shoulders of giants, in a path moving towards the future. That's the path we need to walk along, a path towards the future, but one which respects and values where we came from, our traditions, our customs, our culture, and the things that make us a civilization. But we need to continue making progress and prepare the ground for those who'll follow us in this relay race that that is universal development. We still have time to learn from this crisis and to analyze whether what we're doing is really what we must be doing if we're on the path that we wish to be on. We have all the tools available to do just that. We're living in an interconnected, globalized world, and with the technology to easily resolve all these problems, but without the slightest bit of will to do just that. Everything that we do or don't do now will determine whether we make the most of this opportunity. And this starts with the smallest act. We need to do what really makes us happy. We need to maintain our traditions, we need to care and value our families. We need to teach our children what our parents taught us, what we learnt from our teachers. We need to value what has made us what we are, and we need to continue believing in what we are. At the same time, we need to look for people who think in that way too. We need to look at those that are optimistic about the future and about human potential. We need to stand as an example to others. Consequently, instead of once again asking for multilateralism to be remodeled into a model where we stand as nations to analyze and decide upon the path that we'll wish to take, I am saying that my country, El Salvador, is already going down this new path, a path towards our development and to the first God, and will be an example for other countries of the world. We're designing the future that we wish to see, a future in which all people will have the judgment and the opportunity to do what they really want to do. Confucius said once, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Goethe said, the person born with a talent they are meant to use will find their greatest happiness in using it. In this way, this is the philosophy underpinning the vision that we're building. We want to see a future where people do what they like, where they, and because they do it well, where they can do what they do well. And economic development will be a happy consequence, an extra. Economic development will be a means and not an end. This is what we'll do in El Salvador. We're trying to, little by little, build opportunities and cultivate the judgment to use them with the tools that we've been lent, and hand in hand with people that are increasingly alert and wishing to build their future. It won't be easy, but we'll use the time that God has given us to make the progress that we can responsibly. We'll work with people that have not been drawn in by the hypercommunication of the world, and we'll work with those who believe in the infinite potential of humankind and believe in the greatness of what we can achieve together. Thank you.